Okay, Q&A. Yes.
Okay, so about Yom Kippur, actually.
Oh, I love leftover Yom Kippur questions.
Leftover, yes.
Yeah.
When we say during the Shemona Esrei, Shakatinu, right? When we do that, and isn't that what it is? Why? No, we say a lot of the things.
It's a bit.
What's the bit?
Whatever.
Okay, whatever. I'm sorry. We it's part of the Vidui.
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of the things that we are confessing in terms of our sins seem to be revolved around speech.
Yeah.
Like I'd say a good 15 to 20% of what those entire lines are somehow related to the mouth or speech, and it seems like almost a little repetitive to a certain degree.
Yeah. So first of all, Rav Pesach, I think, made this point in his Friday pre Rosh Hashanah Tshuva shir about if you're going to focus on one area, then speech just has a lot of stuff in it. But there's a Mishleic angle too, which is that. Hold on just a second. I can't remember if we did this. Let's see if this is a Monday night one or a last year in the morning one. That's what I'm trying to remember. Oh, wait a minute. Yad ha-lashon. I think that's the phrase. Yeah. Apparently,
we were discussing some speech.
I thought. Hold on just a second here. I'm Umavis. 13 Mishle? No, okay, I can't find it. Hold on just a second. Okay, hold on just 1 second here. Let me pause this. Yeah, so Mishle 1821. Mavis v'chaim biad. Oh, because it's not halashon, biad lashon. So death and life are in the hands of the tongue. Okay, not that your tongue has hands, but in the control of the tongue. V'ohaveha yochal pirya. And one who loves it will eat its fruit. Okay, it's a very weird pasuk. Isaac, I don't know if you can talk, but if you remember it, you're welcome to say the idea if you remember it, and if you can talk. Any just quick
yeah.
Sorry, Isaac, go ahead.
We connected it to the previous pasuk.
Oh, did we? Oh, yeah. Oh, this is the weird one. Oh, yeah. I remember this.
Yeah.
So from the fruit of a man's mouth, his belly will be satisfied. The produce of his lips will sate him. Okay. And then death and life are in the hand of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Yeah. Do you have some thoughts, Arya?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that it seems like the second half of the pasuk is kind of going in either or.
Yes, it's going either or, right? In other words, you're going to eat the fruits of it, whether it's life or whether it's death. Yeah.
Now, and anyone can like whichever one.
Yeah.
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 It's not. There's no consequence. Really.
No, it just says you can eat the fruits. Yeah. So basic idea. I don't remember what we said, but the basic idea is that the dangerous thing about speech is, first of all, speech is the main way you impact the world. Okay, and the easiest way to think about this is you think if Hitler only used his hands, how much evil could he actually do? Versus it's all in the speech and the rhetoric and convincing other people and talking up his whole philosophy and everything. And the other dangerous, so that's one thing, is that you can do a lot of harm and you can do a lot of good with it. But the second thing is that speech is a direct translation of your thoughts and values into action, and it doesn't feel like you're doing actions because you're just, when you speak, that's why in halacha, dibur is not considered a ma'isa, because you psychologically don't relate to it as a ma'isa. So it's very easy to just for your true values to just spill out and affect the world without feeling like you're doing any actions. And so the reason for the repetition is in the particularity, in other words, in order to affect the emotions, you need to go through every single particular, that's all of Mishle. You could summarize, if you want to summarize Mishle in one sentence, what would it be? There's different sentences, but what would you say?
About making decisions.
No, the idea of Mishle. If you had to distill all of Mishle's teachings. No, that's not an idea. Good advice is not an idea. What would you say?
Itzahu Chacham Hamaras Anolad.
That's what I was going to say. Izu Chacham Haros Anolad, who is wise, one who sees the consequences, right? But the problem is that if you just say that, that doesn't affect your emotions. In order for it to impact your emotions, you need to go through all the particulars. So with something like speech, where there are so many different ways that you can misuse it, it's not enough to just say like, oh, speech can affect stuff. You have to list every single particular.
So then building off that is, would you say if you had to prioritize one in terms of working on oneself, would you say it's working on yourself intellectually and with like knowledge and stuff like that? Or would you say it's like linguistically and how you use your language?
Well, the primary thing is your values and ideas, and that expresses itself linguistically. Right. But it's kind of like an interesting question because there are things you can do to like make yourself think before you speak. But that's only going to be good if you actually are thinking good, like, like if your thoughts are good, right?
Projection of yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Oren?
This is a totally separate question.
Oh, sorry. So hold on just a second. I just want to point out one thing just as an FYI, because we didn't get a chance to go through this on Yom Kippur morning. So you're talking about all the long Cheit list that we did. Yeah. So people should be aware of the fact that hold on, actually the monthly monitor is going to be easier. That is the version we do, which goes through many particulars. It's interesting that the Rambam's version, which I assume is the older one, is, hold on a second, Cheit is, so here's how his is. Okay, so it starts off the same way. Okay, different order. Tell me if you notice the difference. Yeah,
there are these listing categories.
It's just categories,
not like,
right?
Something dissociated.
Exactly, and they're all halachic. What was that?
No, we say
right,
but
we
like something dissociated. Like I forget what we say.
But yeah, well, so we say some of them, but then we mix in particular sins, into our chaits, right? Like, with the straying of the eyes and the vidas nus and the masa matan.
You almost know.
Yeah, we do at the end. Yeah, we definitely do that also, but even at the end, it's different because the Rambam has a different order. So, this is a side point, but I was thinking about it yesterday. Lo taseh, v'achataim she'anu chayavim lehem korban, v'achataim she'anu chayavim lehem malchus arbaim, v'achataim she'anu chayavim lehem misa b'dei shemaim, v'achataim she'anu chayavim lehem kares, v'achataim she'anu chayavim lehem arba misos beitin chenek v'hereg sreifa uskila. Right. So what do you notice about the
ascending order? It's
ascending order of severity, right? And ours is kind of mixed up. We mentioned all the korbanos, yeah. So it seems like the Rambam, the basic thing is that we seem to view it in terms of like liability. The Rambam's learning in terms of rank of violation, going ascending. Yeah.
That makes sense for almost everything except for ones. I don't see why ones is like in the middle.
So the first. Okay, this is really a different list. But I did see a thing that, see if it's true ones, then yeah, well, okay. So the whole question of like what the status of ones is. I did see someone who said that this ones is referring to when someone forces you to do the action. Yeah, you saw it. Okay, yeah, I saw it in the Budirim, I think. And what happens is, even though you like, let's take like an extreme example, right? Let's say like.
There's a lot mentioned even for that even the one that you're not finding. And if you don't do that, you're not finding, there's no punishment.
Right.
But nevertheless, there's no finding,
Right. So why would you be chayav? I mean, because again, it's not an act of will, right? So why is Vidui even shaykh to this?
Well, because your values are still messed up. Then.
Yeah, right. In other words, it still is affecting you, right? And if you use an extreme example, let's say a woman who is raped, right, in Giloy Rayos, right? Like she's not misusing her bechira, right? But she's still impacted in terms of the way that the effect the action has on her. So there's still a relative.
That's not what I was saying. I was saying if someone puts a gun to your head and you, I don't know, and he says you should kill that person, and you don't, and you do end up killing that person. That very decision of you killing him, that like your values even beforehand is still affected.
That's true. Yeah. That is true. Yeah. I mean, there you do have a choice, right?
Yeah, but someone who's raped, they're affected after the fact, but like, they have no free will to make that decision.
Okay, right.
That was the distinction that I was.
Right, yeah. Correct. Those
That's
are
what I
two
thought,
different
yeah,
kinds
yeah.
of onus. Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
that's also what Chaim is specifically talking about. That's only by like call it the big three, right? If somebody
No, I
puts
thought
a
that's
gun
what he
in
was saying,
your hand,
I
you
thought
just
that's
fail
why.
it, like,
Yeah, but if you but that situation is considered onus no matter what
right.
when someone's holding a gun to your head.
But don't you have to?
Yeah, you do. But if
Okay.
if you
If you do it, it's still onus.
it's still onus. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's why you don't get punished by Beis
But that's the kind of thing that you would have to do.
The
veto
Vidui on.
for,
Yeah.
For an onus.
For that onus. Yeah.
If you broke one of the, let's say you worship Avodah Zarah because somebody put a gun to your head,
Yeah.
then you have to, then you're it's not onus, but you have to veto.
Exactly. Yeah. As opposed to, let's say, like, let's call it a pure onus, which is like, let's say you are, let's say like you have, whatever, let's say you have like some mental illness that you have a psychotic break from reality and you do an avera like in a state of not consciousness. Like that's onus also, but I don't think that's the type that we're talking about here.
Right.
Yeah. But the reason why I brought this up is because in our Alchid, I think the purpose of the Vidui seems to be to have the emotional impact on like itemizing all of our Chataim in particular ways. Rambam seems to be more concerned with our relationship with the system of halacha, which is why he ranks everything in halachic terms. And I think those are two different emphases of the Vidui. I 1 year I had a theory about it, but that's all the remnants that I have. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the short answer to that current working theory is the Asham news is really a like doing vidui on human nature, okay, on the fact that you are a flawed human being with Yetzer Hara that affects you in your different actions, whereas the Cheit has to do with the halachic system, and then within the halachic system, there's the distinction I just said, and the Raya. I was trying to find this right. It's somewhere in one of the three Nefesh Harav or Mipnei Harav, in those 2 out of 3, where he says that the reason why we do only the short vidui on Ne'ilah is because Ne'ilah is a din in Tainus and Esara, not a din in Yom HaKippurim, and he uses that to he addresses the question there. I just can't find it. Okay, let's go to the next question. Follow up. Yeah.
It's a little bit of a different thing.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Oren first because he had his hand up. Okay, yeah, Oren.
Okay, this might be 2 questions smushed into one. I'm not sure, so you can answer them as one or as 2.
Yeah.
So how does one know whether something is Hashgachah pratis or if it's just mere coincidence?
Yeah.
Especially as related to like the actions of other people. Like, is there an idea? Like, people have free will. So does Hashgachah pratis extend to people? Like what people say or do, or
yeah.
no?
So I'm going to not answer that now, and I'll give you 3 options for how you can get an answer from me. Okay. One is the preferred way is that I plan to give a Sunday shir on this on December 4th. Okay.
Well, it's a big subject.
Yeah, it's a long time from now.
Can you use us as a test case?
The second way is that I already did a test case. This is going to be I gave a shir last year to the women called the metaphysical implications of stubbing your toe, and that's where I talked about this like at length, and that's the shir I'm going to give a updated version of Bli Neder for Sunday shir. And then the third place is on the Stoic Jew podcast, the episode where I was in the cabin for 5 days, and then Rebbe called me out of nowhere and said, "I want to talk to you about Hashgachah." Yeah. And then that was when he, and that was when I only had, that was quite a wild ride. Yeah. So like those are the 3 places where I address it. So if you really need an answer, then listen to the shir or the Stoic Jew podcast, and if you can wait, then I think it'll be better for the Sunday shir. But yeah. So sorry that doesn't.
I have to dedicate now like at least a half hour one day just to discuss what your conversation was like.
Well, I mean, you can listen to the podcast. I talked about it a lot. Yeah. And that was like very soon after it happened. Yeah. Oren, what was your second question, or was it an extension of this one?
Oh, well, that kind of was one question was, how do you recognize Hashgachah pratis? And then the other question was, does Hashgachah pratis extend to humans?
Oh, okay, I see. Oh, you mean extend to
like the actions of other people?
I mean, he's saying like if somebody like.
Oh, so right. Yeah. So I do think that I address both of those on the thing.
Do you have any suggestions of TTL shirts to listen to?
Oh yeah. You mean for this? Oh, I thought you meant in general. Okay, yeah. I mean the classic place where Rebbe addresses this that is easy to overlook is the weasel in the pit. Yeah. Okay. That's a really, really good one. D.
I wish I knew.
Okay. Let's just figure it out really quickly right now. TTL. Oops. TTL list. This is the old TTL list. I still use old school TTL list. This is the good TTL list because it has the summaries of what's in the shiurim. I don't know why this was gotten rid of. Weasel. 153 and D154.
Wait,
The weasel on the bit. What? Oh, everyone has this one? Okay, because at one point they changed it and they just took away all the summaries. That's probably it. Yeah. So this is the Masorah authentic version. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. The only thing is that I think this only goes up to the year 2000, either 2001 or 2002. Yeah. Still very helpful. Yeah, for the old stream. Okay. Yeah. Next question. Yeah. Yassi.
So I've heard this case a bunch of times, and it's very fringe.
Yeah.
Where you're on a train, of course, the train, and right ahead of you, there's 5 people.
Oh, the trolley problem.
And then there's one person the other way.
Yeah.
So I understand, kind of understand the reasoning behind not doing anything, but how do you work out with your conflicting morals of killing people versus going with halacha?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So this is obviously whenever someone brings up the trolley problem thing, then you could end up talking about it forever and going through all the permutations and stuff, which we're not going to do. It's fun, but we're not going to do that in a Q&A. So I'll explain the position on it, which is, let me see if I can get my Kiddush Hashem flow chart.
That's a good flow chart.
Yeah. So this is on, the one of the disadvantages of teaching yeshiva now is in high school, I made so many PowerPoints and I had like a PowerPoint for everything. So let's go over the basic Kiddush Hashem things. So there's 2 categories of mitzvos, right? There's Yehareg val Yavor, where you have to give up your life rather than violate them. By the way, this is according to the Rambam. Okay, there's different shitos. And then there's Yavor val Yehareg, violate the mitzvos and live. And there's 2 those are the 2 results. And then the 2 main categories are the big 3, which is really not just 3 mitzvos, it's 3 categories. So Avodah Zarah, which has 31 mitzvos. Yeah. And then murder. And then Gilui Arayos. I put sexual prohibitions because I was talking about this with 9th graders. It's not all sexual prohibitions. It's Gilui Arayos, which is specifically the ones listed that we read on Shabbos, on Yom Kippur afternoon.
Or more.
It's more than that. It's the ones that are chayav kares listed in Parshas Acharemos. So, for example, bia with a non-Jew is only chayav malchus, right? So it's a sexual prohibition, but it's not Gilui Rayos, but I think even that's subject to machlokas because I think there are people who hold that abis raihu da arayos, like side arayos things are also included in this, but I think so. I think it's a machlokas rishona. I haven't been through this in detail for a while. Okay, so here's the flow chart. Okay, so the general rule is you always give up your life rather than violate these 3. Okay, so someone puts a gun to your head and says, murder this person or I'll kill you, then you let yourself be killed. Okay, and we're going to use that for the trolley case.
I mean, same idea.
Wait, we're gonna get to it.
It's the same idea. How do you conflict with your natural want to live?
Oh, you're asking like a experiential phenomenological question of how do I cope with this, or?
Pretty much.
Okay, fine. So let me finish answering this question first because we should all know these halachos, and then I'll try to answer that. With other mitzvos, then you have to distinguish whether you're being forced to violate the mitzvah for his benefit, or if he's doing it like lishma, like just to make you violate it. And how do you know that? You can't see into his head. Well, yeah, that'd be really nice if he told you.
Like if he's telling you to go rob a bank, give him
exactly right. Is you infer it from the action, right? So if he's saying cook me a meal on Shabbos, rob a bank or whatever, so then that's for his benefit. But if he's saying wear shotness, unless he has some sort of weird shotness like fetish or whatever, then yeah, what was it? Right. So if he's saying eat the chazer, then that's doing it just to make you violate it.
I don't think, and therefore.
Oh, then it's a different category.
That would mean
oh no! So if he's doing it, if he's making you do it for this is the flow chart. We got a flow. All right. If he's forcing you to do it for his own benefit, then you do yavor v'hareg, then you violate the mitzvah and live. Side point. It's so hard to not talk about this. Hold on. this was so when I was at the Faders for second night Rosh Hashanah meal, and Noah Greenfield did this. He likes doing icebreakers, so he did this icebreaker of like, what's your favorite a favorite Yom Noraim memory? You know, so I had this memory based on this halacha, which is the Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos, Perek Sheni, when he talks about violating Shabbos for Sukkos Nefashos. Says like this, and this is relevant to your answer too. Okay, I'm getting back to that. He says, so he says you're allowed to violate Shabbos for Sukkos Nefashos, and then if there's a suffix, he goes through the cases. He says, "Kashosim dvarim elu," when we do these things. What? Oh, sorry. Stop sharing within that and go back to you're seeing okay. Okay, so when we violate Shabbos to save a life, in osin osan lo ide goyim, we don't do it through goyim, like we don't like, you don't tell it like my friend is dying, wink wink wink, like you below ide katanim, you don't do it through kids. I mean, this is not one of those things where like when people take the baby and they like switch the light switch like that, you don't do that to like CPR with the baby on the chest. That's bad for the baby. Below ide avadim, you don't do it through servants. Below ide nashim, not through women. So that Shabbos shouldn't become like less significant in their eyes. Ella ide gdoli Yisrael v'chachmeihem. You do it through the great leaders of Israel and their chachamim. Okay, why? He says, sorry, v'ein morin l'nashim la'asos dvarim elu. We don't instruct women to do these violations. Asur lihismahamea b'chil Shabbos. It's asur to tarry, right? Asur to be to delay in violating Shabbos. For someone who's sick. Shneimar, as it says, Asher yase osam ha'adam v'chai behem. Person should do these mitzvos and live by them, v'lo shiyamos behem, and not die by them. Halamadata, you learn from here, she'ein mishpatei haTorah nekama ba'olam, that the laws of the Torah are not vengeance in the world, ela rachamim v'chesed v'shalom ba'olam, but they're mercy and kindness and peace in the world. Ve'elu haminim, and these heretics, she'omrim shezeh chilu v'aser, who say that, this is chil Shabbos, it's aser, and he calls them heretics. Alehem akas of Omer. About them it says in Hashem's name, "V'gam ani nasati lahem chukim lo tovim u'mishpatim lo yichyu behem." That in their eyes, God has given them chukim that are not good and mishpatim that they can't live through. Okay, so what's the relevance of this? The reason why I'm reading this is because and I'll go back to my memory in a second, and I'll go back to the question. Is that in the Kuntras, then the Baal Kuntras makes the point that when we say that you have to violate the mitzvos and live, it's not a concession. It's not like when push comes to shove, like, I'm sorry, we have to violate these mitzvos. No, it's really a demonstration of the nature of Torah. In other words, that God values life over the keeping of these mitzvos, okay? And that's why you do it through the Chachamim, because they have to demonstrate to the nation this idea. And so one of my most impactful Yom Ryan memories was on Yom Kippur, back in the days when we davened in Tag. We were in the middle of the Shemona Esrei, and then, I've told the story before, and then, I'm gonna say it again for the recording, and then a woman fainted, and immediately all the great Chachamim, like 6 of the great Chachamim, like just rushed to her help in the middle of the Shemona Esrei, and like I had just learned this halacha and it really impacted me. Okay, so that's Yavor Vayharig. Okay, but if he's doing it just saying Eid Chazer, and I want just for that sake, so then you have to ask: is it in private? Which is there a minyan of Jewish men there? Okay, not private in terms of, we don't care about non-Jews. Okay, that's the weird thing about Kiddush Hashem in these actual halachas. It has to do with Jews. Okay, and if it's in public, then it's Yahareg Val Yavor. Then you violate, you allow yourself to be killed even on one of these, lesser violations. And then the only other exception is if this is during a time of religious persecution, then all mitzvahs become Yahareg Val Yavor. Okay, yeah.
In private,
yeah, so then you do Yavor Vayharig if it's in private and he's doing it just to make you violate it. Yeah. Does that answer your? Yeah. Okay. So the framework here, okay, is that when it comes to giving up your life or like killing other people, the whole system in Judaism. See, when moral philosophers deal with this question, they are applying a value system usually to the results. Not all of them. I'm saying there's lots of different approaches. Usually applying to the results, And therefore, there's the question of like, if, there's one person who's, well, the classic case is that this is going to,
Towards 3, and then you can switch it to go to 1.
yeah, so you could switch it from a higher number to a lower number, right? So a lot of people, I forgot what the moral theory is of the, I forgot. I read the book on the guy who wrote the Office and the Good Place. He wrote a book on moral philosophy. Michael Shore. Yeah. So there's a book on ethical philosophy, which is an entertaining book to read, which I read earlier in the year. So he talks about the trolley problem, and so a lot of people would say like you got to go based on the results. Judaism is very different in that it goes based on what choice are you making. So the reason why we don't kill, the reason why we say Yaharik Bal Yavor for murder and for murder is because Mi Yemar de Dam. Right, is who you don't have the right to say that one person's blood is more precious than another person's blood before God. And so in other words, what you're doing is you're abstaining from that decision. Like, so if someone says like, kill this person or I'll kill you, the reason why you have to let yourself be killed is you're not allowed to take a stance on evaluating lives. Okay. And if you were to act, then you would be taking that stance. And that's also why if someone says, kill this person or I'll kill all of you, you also have to abstain and allow everyone to be killed. And again, if this is based on results, so then like, obviously you should save as many lives as possible, but like, it's not based on results. It's based on like the idea that you're demonstrating about a human ability to like evaluate life. Yeah.
Right. And I think what Yesudi was asking in regards to that, which,
how do you overcome your
like if really someone said like kill this person or I'll kill everyone anyways, like it would be pretty hard to resist. So
this is the interesting thing about the halacha. Okay, on the one hand, and we just referenced this with the ones thing, on the one hand, halacha says you must make a decision here, which means that halacha recognizes you have agency. Okay, however, if you went ahead and did the wrong thing, like let's say someone says bow down to worship avodah zarah or I'll kill you, and you bow down, which you're not supposed to do, and avodah zarah is chayav misa, Sanhedrin doesn't punish you because it treats it as ones. It treats it as though you were under duress, So it is interesting that halacha like charges you with making this decision, but if you fail to act in the right way, then halacha says you were acting under duress, which is a very interesting thing just from a moral philosophy way, because I think in the moral philosophy categories, you say either you are responsible for your actions or you're not. Halacha says like l'chatchila, you are charged with the responsibility here, but if you did act under compulsion, then we recognize it's under compulsion. So the answer is, this is the real test. Like this is a real test, and like your values of of Kiddush Hashem and the system, are going to really come out at that point. But if you fail, then it's considered ones. So the answer, how do you do it? I mean, hopefully none of us ever have to be in that situation, but and the truth is none of us know how we're going to actually act when we're in that situation. You have lots of stories of like, people who like, there's a story that they tell about a Schneeweiss in, I don't know which, death camp that they, and I mean, presumably we're related, but we don't really know any relatives who died in the Holocaust, but he was a non-religious Jew, and the Nazis used to like feed them feasts on Yom Kippur. Right. And he said, I refuse to eat because I'm a Jew and we don't eat today. And the guy said, eat or I'll kill you. And he allowed himself to be killed, And so like that was someone who ostensibly had no connection to the system, but like apparently he did, in that moment. At least that's how the story goes. I think I saw it. Keep it first. Yeah.
It's sort of a question, but I don't know what to say. Just a side thing. Have
you
seen the yes no that flow chart?
The yes, no for this or for
flowchart? Yes, no flowchart.
No.
I'm making choice. Okay, awesome.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Are you asking follow up on that? Or
hold on a second. While we're talking about hold on a second. While we're talking about joke things, I can't help. Oops, sorry.
It's kind of a joke, but also not.
Oh, it's not? Okay. I saw this that this always makes me laugh. Yeah.
I've seen a video where someone did that for like toddlers.
Yeah.
And the toddlers picked up the other put
Oh yeah, well, you got to complete the circuit. Yeah. What were you gonna ask though?
Oh, I was gonna ask, so in this, in the whole framework of like, who are you to choose, you know, between your life or your blood and somebody else's
Yeah.
blood? How do you resolve that in Hashgachah program? I mean, if like, in like the rest of like halacha, like
Yeah.
obviously like your life comes first,
Yeah.
but like, how does that specific din like, you know, work with Hashgachah?
Okay, so I don't know that sugya, so I'm not going to answer halachically, but I will say philosophically, Hashgachah kodem, that your life comes first by you keeping the system, you know, and demonstrating these fundamental ideas. That is Hashgachah kodem. Hashgachah kodem, you know, again, I haven't been through that. But we invoke that when it comes to like taking care of practical needs and stuff. But what is your life actually about? Your life is really about the system. And by the way, just to differentiate here, just to close it off, avodah zara, the reason why we give up our life for is because it represents the entire system. You know, the kol Torah kula is connected to avodah zara, and that's also why during a time of religious persecution, every mitzvah becomes emblematic of the entire system. But with murder, it has to do with who can say whose life is more valuable, and then gilui arayos is derived from murder, is a similar thing. Yeah, which is a whole thing. There's a shir in the kuntras about this, which is a very good shir if you want to go through it. But yeah, okay, next question. Yeah, Chaim. Actually, I'm going to go to Isaac because he's in spotty connections and he might have to leave. Yeah, Isaac.
Oh, actually, I'm sitting down now outside. So
Well, all right, you're already talking, so go ahead. I don't need a whole explanation. Yeah.
So just there's a lot of discussion in the Torah about how like paints this very idyllic picture of if you
You said you didn't have a spotty connection. We can't hear you. So type your question and I'll make an exception for my not reading typing during the thing rule, and I'll take Chaim's question for now. Yeah, go ahead, Chaim.
Yeah.
Oh, he's back.
Well, we don't know if he's back.
Okay.
You said yeah. Go ahead.
I'll ask the question before, but
Yeah.
it's related to I don't really like the philosophy of having things that happen and perceiving that or things that are about self-reflection. What's the possibility of doing that for good things that you might do
For good things?
Yeah. Like whether or not it is alcohol.
Yeah. Right.
How do you use that?
Right. Yeah, we have talked about this before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me just repeat the question. So the question is, Oren's question, presumably, even though Oren didn't say this, it really focuses on bad things, right? When bad things happen, or when someone harms you, whatever, then like, is that Hashgachah? How do you, Hashgachah pratis, how do you evaluate that? Chaim's question is about good things. When good things happen, then what do you do? Like how do you frame it? So I still am a fan of the, again, Rebbe challenges this paradigm a little bit, which I hope to address in the thing, but like, okay, actually, I'm gonna give Rav Pesach's answer, which I probably brought up in the year also. Rav Pesach's answer was he explained it in terms of Birkas Gomel, right? So Birkas Gomel is you're in a situation where you could have died and then you didn't die, and you make a bracha to Hashem, right? So ostensibly, you're attributing this to Hashem, but then you would expect the bracha to say something like, "Thank you, Hashem, for saving my life. Thank you, Hashem, for like doing a miracle." But the bracha we actually say is Baruch Hashem Hagomel l'chayavim tovos mishkum lani kol tov. The one who bestows good things to those who are liable and who has bestowed all good to me. Okay, so the question is, why do we do that? So the way Rav Pesach answered it is he said, first of all, the general derech of brachos is they take, brachos hashevach or brachos hayira, as the Rambam calls them, is they take things that happen to you that have an emotional impact, and instead of allowing you to frame it on your own, it frames it in a way that's conducive to yiras Hashem and ahavas Hashem, right? So you have a boom of thunder, right, which almost happened during Yonah. It wasn't quite a boom.
It was pretty
loud. It was a loud rumble, but my understanding, again, you ask your posik, but my understanding is you only make the bracha on thunder if it's like
that hits you.
if it like really like has that, sometimes there's like a crack of thunder, that's what I was told. I'm sure there's different Cheetos, but
lightning.
Lightning when you see the fork.
You have to see.
You have to see the fork. Yeah, you don't see it you don't do it with a flash because you're not actually seeing the lightning. That one I think is unanimous. The bolt. Yeah. It doesn't have to fork. Yeah. Arc. An arc of lightning. Okay. An arc of lightning. 3 damage divided any way you choose among a number of targets. No. All right.
It's 2 to 1 and 1 to another.
Oh, 2 to 1 to 1. Okay. Anyway, so how do you feel when you hear like a giant like crack of thunder? There's a certain terror, right, which can lead to either a pure like animalistic feeling or a brushing it off or to an avodah zarah superstitious feeling. But what does halacha do? Is it says channel that and say the bracha of osamase breshis or shekocha ukvrasa male olam, right? Which is reflecting on the fact that this is a demonstration of God's might in creation, or that this is part of my breshis and this is not like a supernatural thing, Or let's say like you see a friend who is a good friend who you haven't seen in 30 days, and you're very happy, you say shehachianu, right? Because it could just, if you didn't say shehachianu, it could just be like a thing of like, oh, I'm just happy, and this is our own social reality. But no, you direct it into hodah to Hashem. So that's how Rav Pesach wanted to answer Birkas Gomel, that in reality, maybe you survived because God intervened through Hashgachah pratis and saved you. Maybe I tell my students, you flip a coin, there's 50-50 that's going to land on heads or tails. If you get into a car accident and your car flips, there's 50-50 that you're going to land on heads or tails, right? Maybe there's a little bit more depending on the weight of the car. What? I know. Do you get the point I'm making? Okay. All right, good. Thank you. So, it's called a mushal. Okay. Yeah. Figure out your algebra 2 curriculum and then get back to me after that. Yeah. What do you call it? So it could be probability, or it could be a Hashgachah intervention. Or let's say like you had a life-threatening illness and you recover. Could be that naturally you were going to die and God saved you, or it could be that the immune system that God created us with, asher yatzar es adam b'chachma, that's what cured you. But the point is that it all goes back to God, whether it's Hashgachah pratis or Hashgachah klalis, and therefore hoda'ah is relevant, and you're chayav, right? Hagomah l'chayavim tovos. That we have to recognize, as we recognize on Yom Kippur, that we really don't even deserve to live. We have all of these like liabilities that would, based on strict justice, we shouldn't deserve this at all. So when you get out in a life-threatening situation, you have this feeling of like I don't deserve this, and so you channel that through bracha to hoda'ah. Okay, so that's like the derech. Okay, now to answer your question. When something good happens, it could either be Hashgachah pratis, right, for you. It could be Hashgachah pratis for someone else, right? Like that's the whole thing. Like the Rambam's example of like some rich guy like builds a palace, and he uses his wealth for that. But maybe that's just so that one day, like some chacham who's going along and needs some shade to think in, it's going to be a shade for him. It might not even be for that guy, right? Or it could be just Hashgachah klalis in the laws of nature. But either way, you have hodah to Hashem. And that's definitely the proper response. And then the next question is, how do you utilize it? That's not the answer to that is not going to change based on whether it was Hashgachah pratis or Hashgachah klalis, because you can't know God's thoughts unless you have like nevuah about why. Again, like the example of this.
I'm assuming that you don't care whether or not it's
Right. I'm saying things with good. Well, with good things also. I mean, you can debate whether this is an example of a good or a bad thing. But when Haman was going to kill the Jewish people, Mordechai says to Esther, and I said this in the podcast episode, who knows whether it was for this moment that you were appointed to royalty? What do you mean, who knows? Like, we know the story. Like, it's very clear that she was appointed here, but he didn't want to make the assumption that she was appointed there because he doesn't know how God works, So he didn't want to make the assumption. So we can't know even for good things, but you should definitely have hoda'ah, and you should utilize it in line with like the values of Hashem. Yeah, Akiva.
Somewhat related question.
Sure.
For today.
Yeah.
And leaving soon.
Yeah.
But I guess what if there is a line? What's the line when you're traveling to like the mindset between, I guess the two sides are like complacency and being safe, like we're
Yeah.
talking about complacency here.
Yeah.
You gotta recognize, but also not having like, let's say, anxiety, because I know certain people have that when they're traveling.
Right.
So what's the line, I guess, because then you say it's Vidui.
Well,
there is some
okay.
recognizing
So
that-
I haven't asked this Shaila in a long time, so I don't know if things have changed, but I'm under the impression that we hold by the Rav. And the Rav held that nowadays, when you travel by plane, then the only reason you should say Tfilas Haderech is if you have that anxiety, because air travel is really safer now than road travel. I mean, and so he said that it would go by the anxiety. Now, I don't know if that means like if you have anxiety walking from Dinsmore to Yeshiva, like I don't know if like like there's still objective parameters for when you say Tfilas Haderech, but I know the Rav said that with the with air travel and presumably also with like ship travel, right? I mean, I don't know that he says this, but like back then, you go on a boat across the ocean, that's like like a 50-50 chance of death. Yeah, depending on how it's weighted. So I don't know how much that psak extends to all anxiety, but in terms of like what you should have, I mean,
I guess also because planes are so safe.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, right. I mean, I would say from a halachic standpoint, there's the Tfilas Derech Shaila. From the like just how you think about the situation standpoint, I mean, you have Pribim Tati Malorum, think about all the bad things that can happen, right? And they should be before your mind. So don't like fake yourself out into thinking that like I'm totally safe, but also realize that there's statistics. Like when the plane has turbulence, it's not like, oh no, we're gonna die, because how many planes actually like crash from turbulence? Zero, right? I mean, unless it's like it flies into like a hurricane or Denzel Washington. What?
Vortex.
Yeah, right. No. So in terms of like what feeling you should have, and I do think that like self-talk based on actual probability is probably the healthiest perspective, recognizing that you could die, but the likelihood is not, and therefore like the anxiety is not really warranted, neither is like this feeling of absolute safety,
Like somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle, and
depending on the travel form.
yeah, right. And also like similar to the idea I was saying about like the brachos, if you have that feeling of anxiety, like I rationally know that I'm not going to die, but I feel like I'm going to die, use that to reflect on your mortality. Like it's an opportunity to reflect on your mortality, even if it's irrational, but like thinking about the fact that like, like I do know, I one of my rebbeim in high school was on, this is a long time ago, he was on a plane, and I think it was right when they first started having like, on domestic flights, the TV in front of the seat in front of you. So there was a severe malfunction with the landing gear. Okay. And I think they need to do one of those things, like maybe like one of the wheels didn't deploy. So they need to do a thing where like they had to like land and like skid. And they made an announcement about like, I don't know what they said, how candid they were, but like it was clear that there was a one chance that they were going to skid and like live, and the other is that it was going to crash. And they were watching the news live about their plane on the seat in front of them, and this teacher of mine like said Shema and like did his Vidui and stuff, and like and so if you feel that way, like use it to do as an opportunity to do tshuva, and like yeah.
I was just thinking about it the other week, and then also I have an aunt who has like extreme anxiety about traveling.
Yeah.
Especially like she can't even fly.
Yeah.
So.
Don't tell her this.
This is the sheer of like having that. Who was talking about it? You have to recognize that you could die.
Rabbi Fader gave shir last night.
Was that last night?
Yeah, with the car drunk driving example.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Before I call you, I just want to call on Isaac in case he has to go. Yeah, Isaac, do you have a reception now?
Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So have a good Sukkos.
Yeah.
I'm not
so
Yeah.
So the Torah paints like a very idyllic picture of what happens if you keep mitzvos. Like you'll get like lots of you'll have rain in its time, and like you'll have lots of rain, and no woman will be like
miscarrying.
On the word miscarrying. Yeah.
Again, we can't hear you anymore. Okay. Still can't hear you. You got past idyllic this time. Congrats.
Oh, the mitzvos. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What? And now I heard the word mitzvos.
Okay. I think.
Why don't you type the question, Isaac? Okay, if you can.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, the question is, the Torah paints a very, very idyllic. But
every time you get to idyllic, just don't say the word idyllic. Then you won't. Yeah.
The Torah paints a very, very sure, but it doesn't seem to fit with the picture that the Torah paints. Doesn't seem to fit with the way that Hashgachah operates.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the simple answer to that question is the Torah is talking about society, right? When Klal Yisrael is rov tzaddikim, then all this stuff is going to happen. It's not talking on an individual level, and we don't have a society where the rov of the tzibur is tzaddikim. Certainly not in Israel, So we haven't even seen a test case where you could test this theory, right? What? We can see the opposite. Yeah, that part is definitely true. And if you want to pull a Rabbi Akiva, then if this is true, then that's also true. That's the straightforward answer. Okay, last question for today. Yeah, Yossi.
So I had a question about Gomel also.
Yeah.
I had in like 9th, 10th grade, I had this really bad cold. I had like 104 fever.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was dying.
Yeah.
But I asked the child and they said that I don't say Gomel.
Yeah. So they're what do you call? There definitely is like a gray area in terms of the shaila, and I do think it has to do with like the statistic probability, and also whether your life was actually in danger or whether it was just like I'll give you the other example, which is not directly related to your thing. Is a friend of mine was like driving in a tunnel, and like her car spun out of control and was like horizontal, like in the middle of like this tunnel with these fast going cars, and so she asked the shaila, and she was told not to do Birkas Gomel because she didn't actually she was the event could have turned out in a way where like she died, but she never actually suffered like a harm that like could have jeopardized her life. I forgot how the posting worded it. It was that in other words, like how did it go? Yeah, I'm not conveying it accurately. Like, she came out of the thing unscathed, right? In other words, she didn't have any like harm whatsoever. And it just happened to be that she ended up in a situation where like if she stayed there long enough, then the car could have hit her, So there's situations like that, either based on the particulars of the scenario or on the probability that even if you felt like you were dying or that you could have died, it doesn't necessarily warrant Birkas Gomel. I don't know how those shilas are posted. Yeah. Okay, good questions as usual.
Thank you.
Right. Everyone have a Chag Sameach, and Bli Neder and Im Yirtzeh Hashem will return and not crash. Yeah.